The other big story this week was the reintroduction of a transgender bill that would make it a felony for anyone to give puberty blockers, hormone therapy, or perform gender reassignment surgery to anyone under 18 who is, as Representative Bruce Skaug wrote in his bill, struggling with gender dysphoria. House Bill 71, or the Vulnerable Child Protective Act, was brought up again by Republican Representative Bruce Skaug. He wants to amend an existing law against female genital mutilation passed in 2019. He wants to include these transgender treatments and to also include male genitalia. Representative Skaug tried this last year with a possible punishment of life in prison. This time, he reduced it to 10 years in prison. So to reinforce their argument that Idaho needs a law like this, the Idaho Freedom Foundation paid for a woman from California to come in and make the case against minors making a gender transition. Chloe Cole says she began exploring the idea of transitioning to a boy at age 12, a journey into gender dysphoria, she says, encouraged by what she saw online. After a therapist affirmed Chloe's identity, she says she started taking puberty blockers at 13 and had a double mastectomy at 15. Says she was told her only treatment was to transition.
My parents, and especially my dad, initially objected to this. And they wanted me to wait until I was 18 and responsible for myself to make the decision. But their hand was forced by the doctors. They were told that there really wasn't any other option. None other had been presented to them. And they said that there was less than a 1% to 2% regret rate, that it was clinically insignificant. And if I were not affirmed in my identity, they said I would be at risk of suicide. Gender dysphoria really is a mental health condition. And yet we're treating it with surgeries and physical interventions. There is not a single other mental health condition that we do the same with. And yet it's perfectly fine for children who wrongly feel that they are the opposite sex to be mutilated and castrated.
Chloe says she stopped her hormone therapy at the age of 16, but that is just one woman's transition story. And there are others for sure, and actually from those from Idaho that tell a different side to this. And we spoke to one Boise family who would truly be impacted by this legislation, Preston Thompson and his transgender teen-age daughter, Lynn.
That's made me happier. That's been a good thing for me, and my legal name change was a very good thing.
That's one of several changes in Lynn's life. She's a 16-year-old transgender girl.
Her safety is our top concern.
With the full support of her father, Preston.
We've known since Lynn was about 6. I think I mentioned that last time that we talked.
How would you know that? For me, I could always sort of feel I didn't really get bad gender dysphoria until puberty started happening, and then it just kept getting worse. But when I was a little kid, I always just huh. About being a guy, and I always identified more with and felt more like a girl, but I just didn't have the language or means to express what I meant by that.
A large part of that expression today is puberty blockers and estrogen hormones. No surgeries right now.
There's a term called gender euphoria, as the exact opposite of gender dysphoria in the trans community. That happens when you finally look in the mirror and see yourself.
Do you see yourself?
Yes. A lot more than I used to.
I don't know any parent or, and very few even trans kids who are trying to jump to a surgical intervention route. We did not have pressure from the medical community at all. And if somebody was pushing that on her, that's deplorable. That's not something that should happen. I can tell you that here in Idaho, the clinic that we work with Lynn, the pediatrician that we've worked with, there has been respect and there has been a lot more listening than talking.
Is that a reality? Did you experience anything like that?
I did not experience anything encouraging me to be trans. It just really sucks how people have been portraying it as they've been groomed into this.
Well, yesterday, probably the best text we received after we aired that story was the one from Barb that said, Preston Thompson is the dad all kids deserve. And she's right. But we got a lot more than that. Like this one from James in Boise. It's a sad commentary of our politics and society when a political party pays someone that represents less than 1% of their demographic to demonize and use government power to target and hurt people. Everyone involved in that hearing and everyone involved in drafting and passing anti-trans legislation should be ashamed, particularly for a party that claims to promote Christian values to have a political platform based on almost exclusively fear and cruelty. I have serious doubts that gender dysphoria is anything more than a psychological issue, says Ron. To subject a minor to the extremes of transitioning strikes me as an inappropriate response. But for politicians to try to impose their beliefs on these families is just extremists, politicizing what should remain personal medical decisions. Again, says Ron in Nampa. I'm afraid there will come a time in Idaho when everyone, no matter what you believe, will be subject to legislative scrutiny. I just hope they don't come after left-handed people, says Mike in Caldwell. That's a good point. We don't allow children to vote, smoke, drink before they are adults. Why? Because it's an important decision that needs some thought that is made with a more mature adult brain. Why should hormone blockers or reassignment surgery be any different? Let these children dress, behave as they feel, but wait until they're an adult to make such a permanent decision. Well, kudos to the Idaho Republican Party legislators for trying to fix more problems that don't exist and spending our tax dollars codifying their narrow-minded views, said David in Boise County. Cheers to Preston Thompson and his child for standing up for their rights. It is ironic that you can refuse to give your child medical care due to religious beliefs, but if your child is transgender, then the government will handle it, says Jeff in Middleton. When is the Idaho legislature going to get out of our bedrooms, our bathrooms, and doctors' offices? That's a good question sent in. My free will is not for anyone but me. So that's how that wrapped up for that. And we appreciate all your comments. We've got a few more coming up right after this.